Hi, this is Scott Garibay. Excuse me. And today I want to talk about Dungeons and Dragons. And I specifically want to talk about Godzilla and what Godzilla, a modern dragon, what Godzilla stands for when he is portrayed correctly in Japanese cinema, and what Godzilla stands for when he's in American cinema. And how that reflects on the two types of Dungeons and Dragons that are one type of Dungeons and Dragons that already exists and that I think should pack up shop and go home, and a new type of emerging Dungeons and Dragons that is more important than the old type of Dungeons and Dragons. So let's get into this. All right, so this Wednesday I will be seeing the film Godzilla -1. This is a current release Japanese Godzilla film. I'll be seeing it on my IMAX, and I'll be seeing it subtitled. It'll be in original Japanese, right? And the reason I'm seeing it is I am fascinated with the Japanese culture's interaction for Godzilla. So the Japanese take the Godzilla films very seriously. They're still releasing them today. And the reason why is Godzilla is an allegory. He's an allegory for what the Americans did to the Japanese in World War II, right? So essentially, Godzilla is this monster who arrives, in Tokyo, smashes down buildings, smashes down Japanese buildings, and eats Japanese people, right? And burns Japanese people with his breath weapon. He's a modern dragon, right? But that's not where it ends for the Japanese. For the Japanese, Godzilla is this allegory of this incredible force who came and destroyed, but really didn't even care about what was being destroyed. Godzilla is not upset with Tokyo. He's not upset with Japanese buildings. He's not upset with Japanese people. He's simply a force of nature. And when he arrives, he's this incredible predatory force. He's not a force of nature. I'm sorry, I should say. He's a predatory force. He is a force of destruction, right? And the reality is, I think when America attacked Japan in World War II, especially having seen Oppenheimer this year, it's clear that it had nothing to do with Japan, right? We were saying to the world, this war has to stop, right? Because Germany had already been defeated, right? And we're saying, listen, everyone, right? This war stops now, right? And when we did that, not only were we shutting down Japan, but we were saying, everyone in the world, listen carefully. We say when wars end, right? We don't have the power yet to say when wars start, but America, from now and every day forward, we say when war ends. And that's still happening right now, right? Like, basically, all over the world, people start wars, and they look to the right, and they're like, oh, hey, can we continue this war? I can tell you right now, right? It doesn't matter what Republican is elected on November 2nd, 2024. Day one, the war in Russia ends, right? Every villain group in every villain group in the world, every tin pot dictator in the world knows they're on a clock, right? President Joseph Biden doesn't have any courage, and he's going to allow whatever villains in the world choose, right? But that's going to end the second we have a Republican president, right? They're going to take that shiny military we have, and they're going to end every war they choose, right? Basically, all world wars all over the world are simply allowed by America. We can choose to end any of them when we want to, right? And so basically, what's interesting now, here's what gets interesting. So we now know what Godzilla means in a Japanese film, in a Japanese Godzilla film, right? Which I'll be seeing this Wednesday. What does Godzilla mean in an American film? Nothing. Like, we're not, like, literally Godzilla in an American film is a giant lizard who is eating who is smashing down New York buildings and eating New York people, right? There's nothing there except another bog standard disaster film. There's no allegory, right? There's no meaning behind it, right? And so why is that important? Why do we as Dungeon Masters need to look at that? Well, we need to look at the two types of Dungeons and Dragons that are being run today by different Dungeon Masters, right? So you can go to my local FLGS and you'll find Dungeon Masters running Dungeons and Dragons for fun, And they're like, hey, come have some fun. Let's cut a goblin in half. And you're like, what is the purpose of your game? Everybody at the table is going to have fun, right? And you're like, I have to read 750 pages of content to have fun. And thousands of pages more if we're in any setting. And you're like, yeah. And you're like, well, isn't there a lot easier ways to have fun? Well, like, what's the point of this? Why would we choose this vehicle to have fun, right? And increasingly, every single day now, we realize Dungeons and Dragons for fun is the most ridiculous. It's for noobs and never gonna arise, right? Just the most rank amateur, non-thinking beings are running Dungeons and Dragons for fun. So what is the purpose of Dungeons and Dragons? In my humble opinion, because of Gary Gygax's legacy and what he established in 1974, Dungeons and Dragons is for improvement. It's to improve as a person. It is to use narrative to explore identity, right? To run social experiments, right? To at outrageously reduced risk, you know? And it's to allow us to truly explore our own identities, the identity of people who have different attributes than us, and even to explore identities in configurations that are not even possible yet, but will probably be needed in the years to come, right? It is the most powerful identity engine that has ever been created, bar none, right? And so, in my humble opinion, where the rubber meets the road is Godzilla as a metaphor. And what's the metaphor for? To improve, right? The Japanese people use Godzilla to never forget and to learn new lessons from a horror which occurred in the 1940s, right? And that's powerful and that's useful, right? Whereas if you watch a Godzilla movie made in America, that's not powerful or useful, right? Like, it's just an empty shell, right? It's not really, it doesn't have significance the way Japanese Godzilla films do, right? Now, this is where we end, right? You have to choose. Are your Dungeons and Dragons games going to continue to be meaningless and useless, right? Because they're dedicated to fun, and that's the highest goal that you can achieve. Or are you going to use Dungeons and Dragons to improve as a person and improve every single person at your table, whether you're a dungeon master or a dungeon performer who's running a player character? That's my challenge to you. That's my question to you. Every single word you just heard is my humble opinion. What's important is when I get to hear your humble opinion. When you get in the comments and send your traffic, please consider liking and subscribing, and have a wonderful millennium.